Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me in today's video. We have a lot to talk about in terms of weather here, including an active pattern setting up for this week, including the chance of severe weather, winter storm conditions, and much more as we go throughout this coming week. So we're going to talk about all of that into today's video. But before we get to that, I would love for you to hit that like button if you like the video, and if you haven't already subscribed, I would love for you to do that as well. We have seen some extreme growth here on the channel within the past week or so, and I'm looking to continue that because I want to keep you all informed on this weather as we continue to get through winter here and eventually into spring and summer. Before we get to that though, a couple housekeeping things. Again, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has watched the past couple of videos. It does mean the world to me. Also, if I haven't been getting back into the comment section quickly, I do apologize about that. I'm a quite busy person. I have 2 jobs actually, as well as, continuing to get my degree here in Charlotte for meteorology. So a lot going on there. And if you are looking for a way to support me, again, don't feel pressured into this, but I do sell prints of some of my images I've taken, so I do have the link for that in the description of this video, as well as if you just want to find it on my page, you can find it here, and as well in the bottom right corner up here. So that's a great way to support me and this channel if you're looking to do something like that. But let's go ahead and get into the weather because we have a lot to talk about today. All right, so we'll start off by looking at our satellite as we normally do here. Again, you see some unsettled weather here building into the southeastern United States. So, we've seen some rain here throughout the southeast throughout this morning, and even a little bit of ice and snow, as we talked about in yesterday's video, here into sections of Virginia and West Virginia. We will look for that to continue throughout the day today, before eventually clearing out as we go into the overnight here into the southeast. But once we get into the overnight and into tomorrow morning, expect some scattered rain and snow showers even here throughout Nova up towards Maryland and through the Philadelphia metro area. Could definitely see some of that going through tonight. And then, of course, out west, just continuing to deal with this atmospheric river, continuing to just bring in so much Pacific moisture out there, which has caused a lot of problems out west. And what that will eventually do is set the stage for our storm here in the east going into later this week. So looking at our hazards right now, again, have some winter weather advisories going on up here into Virginia and West Virginia for that chance of some wintry weather going through the rest of today and tonight. Could even see an inch or 2 in some of the higher elevations. And then, of course, still dealing with just a monsoon of problems out west into California, including flash flood watches, warnings, as well as winter storm warnings for the Sierra Nevada. So be careful of that out west. All right, so we'll start here by looking at our mid-Atlantic system going through the rest of tonight, looking at how this will likely unfold for all of our folks out in this area. So currently, again, still some really kind of cool, wet, dreary conditions here through a big section of the southeast into a good portion of North Carolina, South Carolina, and extending all the way down towards Alabama and Mississippi. As we get through this evening, though, this is right around sunset here, you'll see some snow and maybe even some sleet trying to break out here into sections of central and northern Virginia, and we'll have a pretty sharp cutoff here between rain and that wintry precipitation. But, as we go into the overnight, you could see some of that tries to continue going on here, and I wouldn't even be surprised. Maybe a couple flakes work their way here into D.C. It'll be a close call, very marginal temperatures there, but maybe some rain-snow mix and snow potentially taking over as the main precipitation type at times there in D.C. But again, not too many impacts out of this. And then as we go into tomorrow morning, potentially some light snow and even snow showers trying to work their way through Philadelphia, and especially the northern suburbs up towards Scranton and northern New Jersey, and maybe even New York City getting in on a couple of flakes going into tomorrow morning and afternoon. But after that, we clear out, and we should have a pretty nice afternoon here tomorrow across a big section of the east. So go ahead and look at our GFS model here for the rest of the first half of this week. So I'll run you through now through about Wednesday, and we'll look at what we're looking at before that next storm system arrives. All right, so this is our current system that we are dealing with here throughout the mid-Atlantic and southeast. Again, that clears out by tomorrow afternoon. And we have overall dry conditions here across pretty much all of the eastern half of the country. So those dry conditions will continue. That's Monday afternoon. This is Tuesday afternoon. Again, dry conditions here across the east. And then into Wednesday afternoon, it's probably going to be the last day that most of us see those dry, settled conditions here across the eastern half of the country, because by the time we get into Thursday, that's when problems will begin to arise. So real quick, before we talk about that Thursday storm, I do want to run you through the temperatures this week, because I know that's obviously going to impact everybody in the attire they wear, and whether you have that thermometer set on or off in your house. So going into Monday afternoon here, more average temperatures for this time in January, although slightly above average for a big section of the east here, especially out here into the central plains ahead of that next system, seeing 10 to 15 degrees above average from what you would expect this time of year, closer to 5 to 10 degrees here across closer to the eastern seaboard going into Monday afternoon. That continues into Tuesday afternoon, again slightly above average conditions here across the east, anywhere from average to close to 10 degrees above average the further west you get. And then as we get into Wednesday afternoon, again that last day of nicer conditions, we'll feel pretty nice outside again, anywhere from 5 to maybe even up to 15 degrees above average for this time of year here across the east. But what that does is that prepares us for our next storm here that will cause a lot of problems here throughout this half of the country after already, wreaking a lot of havoc out into California. It will finally arrive our way here come Wednesday afternoon. So this is our GFS model here, looking at the system getting going here, going into Wednesday afternoon. And again, multiple concerns with this system, including the possibility of severe weather, which we will touch on, and then winter storm conditions, which we will also touch on here. So again, we've dealt with this before. Already this year we've had one of these systems, but a dynamic system to watch out for. So we'll move this ahead into time. This is Thursday afternoon now, and you look, got a line of storms here developing into the south, could potentially cause some severe weather issues there. And then, rain stretching its way up into the Midwest. And we'll watch for maybe, some snow mixing in at times. The further north you go, obviously, a bit more of that cold air to work with. But really, we're just lacking a lot of cold air that you would need for this to be one of those blockbuster winter storms for most of us. But for some of us, I do think we will get a good, hefty amount of snow out of this. And we'll talk about that. But going into now, Friday morning here. Actually, let me back this up for you a little bit. I skipped a lot there. So again, Thursday afternoon, watching out for those severe storms potentially in the southeast. Also on Thursday afternoon, you see this low pressure starting to crank up, and as it works its way, through the northeast and mid-Atlantic here, potentially some snow beginning here into northern New England. I think the closer we get to the system, the more we've been able to nail down the people who are most likely to see that snow. And right now, northern New England, the closer you get to Canada up here through Vermont, New Hampshire, maybe even upstate New York, but especially I think northern Maine could potentially get a pretty good storm out of this. And we'll move this ahead in time now, going into Friday afternoon here on our GFS model. Look at this, really some heavy snow ongoing here into northern New England. Still rain for the I-95 corridor. I know a lot of you don't want to hear that, but in the grand scheme of things, we're still early in January here, so don't lose faith yet, but this will not be our storm here for the I-95 corridor. I can just about guarantee you that. But, like I said, northern New England here, look at that, some hefty snow going on, and even on the back end of this, some, if I could draw a better arrow, sorry about that, I'll try to do a little bit better there, sorry. Some northwest flow here ongoing, I think especially upwards into West Virginia, having the best chance of that northwest flow accumulating to higher totals, but, even down towards Gatlinburg, Boone, North Carolina, Waynesville, the Maggie Valley area here into North Carolina, potentially seeing some northwest flow out of this event. So, going into Friday, I wouldn't be surprised to see some snow showers there into the Smokies and up through West Virginia. And that even going into Friday night will continue. Look at all of this back-end snow with this system that we could potentially get here into the mountains. Before eventually going into Saturday, this storm finally begins to pull out. All right, so let's take a look now at our European model with the exact same system, see if we can find some similarities and differences here between the models. All right, this is going Wednesday afternoon here into Thursday. Here we go. System starting to crank up here around Oklahoma and Kansas. Move this ahead in time. Going into Thursday afternoon. Again, storms here into the southeast. And we'll look at some of those parameters that could produce severe weather here in a minute. But again, potentially some snow breaking out here into northern New England with this system. Bring this ahead even further into time here. This is going into Thursday night here. Again on the Euro, seeing some snow here into northern New England where we do have enough cold air for that. And even a bit of a deformation band potentially setting up here on the back end of this system, trying to produce maybe a band of heavy snow through places like the Midwest, from Indianapolis, maybe up through Detroit here in the European model. And then the Euro continues that. I mean, you get a pretty nice hefty band of snow on the back end of this. So, places like Ohio up through Detroit and, especially up into Canada, but those areas could potentially, still get a pretty good thumping of snow out of this. And again, that cold air tries to stay locked here into northern New England. As for the rest of us, though, here along the I-95, just really torrential rain, gusty coastal winds, maybe even some coastal flooding here with that onshore flow through Long Island up into Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, the places that usually deal with that from these types of systems, are under the gun again for that. Then as we get into Friday afternoon here, again, nice back-end snow here, potentially some northwest flow working its way down here into the mountains. Again, especially I think West Virginia, North Carolina, GFS is a bit more favorable for you compared to the European model, but I do think you at least see some snow down there into the Smokies, but especially up here into West Virginia. So move this a little bit further ahead in time. Again, some back-end snow showers here through New England with this as it begins to pull out. The trend has been, sorry, I did not mean to bring that ahead so far. The trend has been to kind of have the system move a little bit quicker. So I think, Sunday could potentially be a pretty nice day here. And maybe even your second half of Saturday could be pretty clear here throughout the East Coast after this system moves out. So let's go ahead and look at some of these parameters for that severe weather threat, and then we'll touch on snow totals as well. So what we're going to have to watch out for here is the potential of this warm Gulf air advecting northward again and giving us that threat for severe weather. You see this warm sector here in the greens indicating, more moisture in the air, which is conducive for severe storms, working its way here back into the same areas that were dealing with this problem, a week or so ago towards New Year's whenever we had that severe weather event unfold here. So, we'll watch out for that. Again, that moisture continues to try to build up. This is going into Thursday, and you really get these dew points even into the 60s and 70s almost here, trying to work their way into Dixie Alley. We've been dealing with this problem for a while here, especially it seems like the past couple of winters we've had these severe weather issues here in this section of the country, and that looks to continue to be a trend this winter and going into this week with this storm. So let's look at another map I'd like to look at. This is pretty much, it shows you how well the conditions are for supercells to form. Again, the brighter the colors you get, the higher the chance is for those supercells to form and the better ingredients there are for them. All right, so going into Wednesday afternoon here, you see going here into eastern Texas. This is the same area that was dealing with severe weather just a week ago. Continues to show potentially the signs that maybe we get, unfavorable weather here or unsettled weather with the chance of some supercells and severe weather forming. As we bring this ahead into time, that threat then shifts off towards the southeast, going here into Thursday. Although numbers lower here on Thursday, you still get these pockets where we could be dealing with some severe weather here into the southeast before that eventually pushes out going into Friday, and we have a pretty nice weekend here across the southeast. All right, so snowfall totals. This is our blend of models. So bottom of your screen here shows your key for what these colors mean exactly on your map. And I'll even bring this down a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. All right, so again, mountains of West Virginia, I think with that northwest flow could potentially get, some pretty good totals out of this. But what I really want to point out here is northern New England. Look at that. Sections of northern Maine here, this is, signaling near a foot of snow out of this possible. Again, we have time for this to change, but we're getting into Sunday evening now, and the storm's likely going to begin going into your Thursday and Friday here in these areas. So we're within that 5-day period now, and we can really start nailing down these areas. So, I think northern New England, the closer you get to Canada and the higher elevation you have, the best shot you have for snow. And then even some northwest flow here down into the Smokies, and especially up into West Virginia. Really want to hammer that point. And we'll watch. Maybe we can get some snow even here on the back end through areas of the Midwest. Euro kind of showed that a little bit in its run today. And we will continue to watch for that trend. All right, so looking at the long range now. As a winter weather lover, this hurts for me to look at and hurts for me to talk about here in the middle of January, or, the beginning of January, but we have to nonetheless. So this is our 8 to 14 day outlook, and still well above average temperatures likely here throughout the eastern United States. And it feels like this is never ending, but we'll watch for this pattern to potentially try to break down as we get later into January and into February. So this is our temperature outlook for pretty much the middle portion of January. Precipitation-wise, pretty much the entire country here dealing with above average precipitation as we continue to have this zonal flow bringing in Pacific air really throughout the entire country, but especially out west where they're continuing to deal with those rounds of storms. And what that means for us in the east is also rounds of storms, because some of these storms are going to make their way over the Rockies and still have enough juice left to cause problems. So looking at the long range here, just to kind of see what general ideas we have going closer to February. We'll bring this ahead into time, and as we start getting into the end of January here, we look to maybe get the pattern to attempt to break down somewhat. Although this isn't super favorable for winter weather, at least looks more average here across the country, and maybe we'll finally try to slow down that Pacific jet out west. If you watch the map here, look at these trains of blue coming through the west, continuing to come through the west. This is now getting towards the middle of January, continuing to come into the west. And then as we finally get towards the end of January, you see some of these reds build in out west, signaling maybe that warm Pacific air will finally get a hold on it, and potentially, maybe some stormier, cooler weather here down into the lower 48 the closer we get to February. So we'll watch out for that. I'm hoping for that, although unfortunately hoping won't get me very far in terms of forecasting. But we can all dream that maybe we'll get us a nice big storm here across the east before the winter is done. And I can just about guarantee you we will have more snow to track here across the east, because it's the very beginning of January and we have a long time to go. So hope you enjoyed the video. Again, if you did, hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe. We've got a lot of great things coming up with this channel, and I'm looking forward to all of that. And once again, I'm super grateful for all the support I've received over the past week. But with that said, hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.